Okay, we're going to start today working the fall semester review with unit number 7, which is where the review starts, even though it's our last unit. So these first questions here ask us to determine if the sequence is arithmetic, and if it is, to find the common difference. So let me remind you that the common difference is what we call D, and that's going to be the number that's added each time. Or if we're subtracting, it's the negative number that's being added each time. Okay, so I'm going to start here with number 1. And on number 1, I noticed that to get from 28 to 35, I could add 7. And then same thing from 35 to 42. And then same thing from 42 to 49. So I'm going to say that this is arithmetic and that my common difference is 7, the number that we're adding each time. Okay, over here on number 2, I'm going to say that to get from negative 22 to negative 18, I would be adding 4, and then this also would be adding 4, and this also would be adding 4. So even though our numbers are negative, I'm still adding to get from one term to the next. So this one is arithmetic, and I have a common difference still of 4. Now again, if you're subtracting, then you would say that your common difference is negative. Okay, on number 3, it asks me to find the common ratio, and we use a common ratio when we are talking about a geometric series. And an easy way to find the common ratio is to take a sub 2 and divide by a sub 1, and then you can check and make sure that it works for the next term. So on number 3, I'm going to say that my common ratio is 10 divided by negative 2, which gives me negative 5. And then I'm going to check and see, is 10 times negative 5 negative 50? And it is. And is negative 50 times negative 5 250? And it is. So my common ratio here is going to be negative 5. All right, same thing on number 4. I'm trying to figure out what I'm multiplying by each time. So I'm going to take a sub 2, my second term, and divide by my first term. And that also gives me negative 5. And again, let's check and make sure. 15 times negative 5 does give me negative 75. And negative 75 times 5 does give me 375. Okay, on 5 through 8, I need to determine first if this is an arithmetic or a geometric sequence before I start to find the explicit formula. Here are my formulas. This one's my arithmetic formula, and this one is my geometric formula over here. So first I need to determine that. So let's start by taking a look here at number 5. All right, so if I was to look at number 5, if I am adding the same number each time, let's talk about what it takes to get from negative 96 to positive 4 would give me negative 100, and then negative 100 would be here as well. So each time it looks like I'm adding negative 100 and adding negative 100 and adding negative 100. And so this one is an arithmetic sequence. And so for arithmetic, again, I'm going to use this formula here. All right, so my a sub 1 is going to be my first term that I'm given, which is 4. And my common difference is going to be that number that we're adding each time, which again I'm going to call negative 100 instead of talking about subtracting. All right, so a sub n is equal to a sub 1, 4, plus my common difference, negative 100 times n minus 1. And then we'll just make this a little bit neater. I'm going to go ahead and say that that's negative 100n, and then I have plus 4 and plus 100. When I distribute that negative 100 into negative 1, that gives me a positive 100. So I'm going to say that my explicit formula for this one is negative 100n plus 104. Or you could write that in the opposite order and say that it's 104 minus 100n. Either way would work on that. Okay, let's do the same thing on number 6. So number 6, I want to start off by determining if it is arithmetic or geometric. So let's determine that first. And it does look, again, same thing, like I am adding negative 100 here and adding negative 100. So the difference here is that my first term is going to be 39. My D value is still negative 100. I think it was 2 that were kind of similar here. All right, so plugging in is going to be a sub n is equal to a sub 1, 39, plus negative 100 times n minus 1. And I'm going to distribute that negative 100 in. That gives me negative 100 n plus my 39 plus 100. And that gives me that a sub n is equal to negative 100n plus 139. And again, you can always plug in some of your terms here and check this. So like, let's pretend like I plug in a 2 right there. That would give me negative 100 times 2 plus 139 on my calculator does give me negative 61. So you can always go back and check on your terms of your problems. Okay, let's take a look at number 7. So number 7, it doesn't look like I'm adding because as you notice here, I start to get really big really fast. And so I think I'm going to be multiplying on this one. And if I check on this one, I do get that I can multiply by 3 and I can multiply by 3. And each time my value is negative, but it's not switching back and forth. So my a sub 1 value is going to be negative 1, but my r value is just going to be positive 3. It doesn't have to be negative 3 to be giving a negative value. A negative r value would happen if this is going from negative to negative to positive if they switch back and forth. Okay, because I have an r value or a number that I'm multiplying by each time, it's going to be geometric. That means I'm going to use this formula over here. So here's my geometric formula. So I'm going to say that a sub n is equal to a sub 1, negative 1, times r to the n minus 1. And what's nice about these geometric formulas is that you don't have to do any simplifying. That's it, just exactly the way that it is. Okay, let's jump over here. Let's see, it looks this time like I'm multiplying by 2 each time, times 2 and times 2. So again, I'm working with a geometric formula. It tells me that I'm going to be working with this one. And I know that a sub 1 is 3. And r is going to be 2. So my formula then would be a sub n is equal to 3 times 2 to the n minus 1 power. Just like that. Okay, again, if you're having trouble finding your r value, you can always take a sub 2 and divide by a sub 1. So 6 divided by 3 would give me that 2 that I was multiplying by. Okay, on 9 through 12, which will be the end of this video, I'm working with a series. A series means that we are finding a sum. And in this first set, it tells me that I'm working with an arithmetic series. And here's my formula for working with an arithmetic series. Okay, so let's start with this first one right here. This little notation, the sigma, means that I'm finding a sum. Here's my formula for a sum for an arithmetic series. So I need some pieces before I get started. So first of all, n is going to be this number up here on the top. So in this case, n is going to be 15. I need to find a sub 1, so I'm going to plug 1 in for my n value. So that'll be 2 times 1, jumped ahead of myself there, 2 times 1 minus 2. So 2 minus 2 is going to give me 0. And then I also need to find a sub n. So in this case, we said n was 15, so I need to find a sub 15. So that's going to be 2 times 15 minus 2. That gives me 30, minus 2 gives me 28. Okay, so now I can plug in and find out that s sub 15 is going to be 15 times a sub 1, 0, plus a sub 15, 28, all divided by 2. Alright, and I'm going to say that 0 plus 28 is still 28, and 28 times 15 gives me 420 divided by 2 gives me 210. Okay, so again, I just plugged all those numbers directly into my calculator. Okay, on number 10, they didn't give me a formula to work with here, so I do know that my n value is 10, but I need to go find a sub n. So to find a sub n, I'm going to jump back up here to this arithmetic formula of my explicit formulas up here. So this one, remember, was arithmetic. So a sub 1, they told me, is 10 plus, and then I've got my d value, 4, times n minus 1. So a sub n is going to be 4n, and then I've got 10 minus 4 gives me plus 6. Okay, and again, you can plug in 1 and check here. So 1 times 4 gives me 4, plus 6 does give me that 10 back right there. Okay, let's see here. For this formula, I need a sub 1. We already know a sub 1 also. but I do also need a sub n. So in this case, I need a sub 10. All right, so a sub 10 is going to be 4 times 10 plus 6, so that's going to give me 46. All right, so I'm going to plug all of that into this formula right here. So S sub 10, I know 10 because that's what they gave me right there, is going to be equal to 10 times a sub 1, 10, plus a sub n, we just found to be 46, divided by 2. All right, a couple of different ways you could work with this. I'm going to go ahead and work inside my parentheses first. So I'm going to say 10 plus 46 is 56 times 10 gives me 560, and then divided by 2 gives me 280. Okay, if you want to divide the 10 by the 2 first, you can. Okay, in my last two, they asked me to evaluate the geometric series. So here's my formula for a geometric series right here. So I just need a little bit of information on this one before I get started. I need to find a sub 1, I need to find my r value, and then I need to identify what n is before I get started. Alright, so on number 11, I've got an a sub 1 value of 3. That's what they gave me for my first term here. Alright, to find r, we can maybe identify it just from these numbers right here, but if you want to, you can take a sub 2 and divide by a sub 1. Your second term divided by your first gives me an r value of 5. And in this case, they told me to work with an n value of 7. Alright, so plugging all of that in, I'm finding s sub 7. So that's going to be a sub 1 times 1 minus my r value of 5 divided by 7. And I'm sorry, to the power of 7. And then divided by 1 minus r. So plugging all those little pieces in. Alright, let's see here. I'm going to put this in my calculator a little bit separately. I'll put my calculator under here so you can see what all I'm doing. So I'm going to start by doing this 5 to the 7th power. So I'm going to work inside my parentheses first. And then I'm going to work inside my parentheses and do 1 minus 78,125. Gives me that. And then I'm going to do times 3. And that gives me that right there. And then I'm going to divide. I know this down here is negative 4, so I'm going to divide all of that by negative 4. And that gives me that to be my sum. And remember, these sums on geometrics are going to be really big because on geometrics, your numbers get really big really fast. So on a series, you're multiplying to get all of your next terms with a geometric, which makes them really big. And then you're adding all of those numbers together. So you're adding all these big numbers together. So your series numbers will be very big, or your sums will be very, very big. Okay. All right, on the last one for this video, again, I'm finding a geometric series. So I'm going to plug into this formula here. This, again, means a sum or a series. I already know that n is going to be 10. That's my number up there on the top of my sigma. Let me go and find a sub 1. So a sub 1 is going to be negative 2 to the 1 minus 1 power. So it'll be negative 2 to the 0 power, and I know anything to the 0 power is 1. Okay. The other thing I need on this is r, and I'd like to say that r is negative 2 that's inside there, but let's kind of check and see. I'm going to build out the sequence just a little bit, so I'm going to say that I already know a sub 1 is 1. A sub 2 would be 2 minus 1, so that would be negative 2. And a sub 3 would be to the second power, so negative 2 to the second power would be 4. And it looks like my r value is negative 2, so always a good idea just to go and check and make sure. Alright, so plugging all of that in, I'm going to find s sub 10. So I've got a sub 1 is 1 with 1 minus r, negative 2. To the 10th power. Let's put that inside some parentheses so that our calculator understands that I'm raising that negative 2 to an even power. And then 1 minus r, so negative 2, down there on the bottom. And we're going to watch out for that minus and negative down there. Alright, so let's use our calculator to kind of help out with this a little bit. So I'm going to do negative 2 raised to the 10th power first. And then I'm going to do 1 minus that 1024 inside my parentheses. And then times 1, still that. And then my minus and negative down here on the bottom is going to give me divided by 3. And so that's going to give me negative 341. Okay, and again, notice that your numbers here are going positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. So sometimes you'll come out with a sum or a series that does have some negative values. Okay, in the next video, we'll pick up with number 13.